Indie Shooter. Brought to you by Akidio, Band Pro Film and Digital, Blackmagic Design, and Carl Zeiss.
All right, so how's everyone doing tonight, all right? Good. So yeah, thanks for coming. So my name is Mike Steidley, definitely pretty pumped to show you guys some stuff. So we'll go ahead and jump right in. So got a little slideshow for you guys, and we'll go over kind of setting up, we'll talk about the camera a little bit, talk about ATOMOS products a little bit, and thank you, blasting me right in the face. So we'll talk about the ATOMOS recorders, the Panasonic camera, and then yeah, we'll have a little fun with it. So. Just to give you guys like a little bit of background, I got my start in action sports as a professional mountain biker. So riding full time, kind of creating my own YouTube content, making videos for like Facebook, was a GoPro sponsored athlete for a little bit. So always just kind of like making my own stuff, and then kind of just snowballed into production company. But done tons of different TV commercials, did a web series for Epic TV that had like 6 million views. And so once that kind of took off, a lot of my sponsors started hitting me up for like little product videos or just different things to kind of create content for them. And then, yeah, ended up here with you guys. So, so a couple riding photos, just told you guys did the pro mountain bike thing. I know you guys saw the reel with a couple of clips of me riding, a few friends riding as well, and some other action sports work that I produced. So talking to you guys a little bit about behind the lens, just to give you guys like a quick overview. As I said, after I kind of got out of the riding, kind of got into just making my own films, and started out doing a lot of action sports work, and then that gravitated towards just doing commercial work. So I'm mainly right outside New York and Connecticut, so it's a pretty good market because I'm pinned in like right between New York and Boston. So a lot of the stuff that I do is like pretty small crew, or working with like ad agencies and stuff like that. Was an editor at Drones and Multi-Rotor Pilot magazine, do a lot of drone work as well. Panasonic GH4, interestingly enough, was probably the first like real camera that I got up in the sky, like building and like soldering like the original like DJI octocopters that like, you know, you would pray would stay in the sky. So did some of that stuff, too. A couple more photos. Let's see what we got. So yeah, the real reason we're all here is to talk about the Panasonic EVA1 and the ProRes RAW and the ATOMOS recorders. So yeah, we'll cruise through here. Yeah, jumping over to the EVA1. Been using it now for a pretty good chunk of time, for most of the year, so got a chance to shoot a whole bunch of different projects on it. As I said, I do a lot of large-scale commercial work, but then a lot of the stuff that I mainly shoot is just smaller projects with like smaller crews, which kind of is my favorite thing to do. Just coming from action sports, being like pretty fast-paced, I like doing that kind of type work. So normally, like an average day for me is like a crew of about 8 is generally like what I work with. So not super big, but you know, just enough guys to kind of like have a few lighting guys, you know, a couple assistants, maybe we'll do 2 cameras, and then you know, just do our thing. So EVA1, pretty rad little camera. I've been super impressed with it. They've got 2 versions. They've got an EF and a PL mount. You can, if you do the PL mount, swap it to EF, but it's like an hour-and-a-half process. So really, it's not something you would want to do on set. But you know, if you needed to do a PL lens, you can do that. So that's definitely pretty rad for a camera in this price point. Really good slow-mo options, which I'm going to talk to you guys about. You've got the variable frame rate, so you've got a whole bunch of different flavors, but it'll go up to 240 for slow motion. And when you go to ProRes RAW, you get some really cool, or well, a lot of the cameras that are kind of in this price point that I've noticed with the slow motion, you know, you start to see all these different artifacts and stuff like that. The ProRes RAW gives you a really clean 240, which I've been really pumped on. So I've gotten some great results on that. They just did a firmware update maybe like 2 weeks ago, which I think has, they said they somehow improved it, which I'm not really sure what they could have done, because it kind of blew me away with, you know, before I thought if we had a job where we had to do high frame rate stuff, like we had to just get a red, you know, to shoot on that. And then I've done a lot of work on this where the 240 has really surprised me with, you know, how clean it is. So I got a few examples I'll show you guys. 5.7K up to 30 frames a second. So that's kind of a big feature. What it will do is if you don't record to the ATOMOS products, it will give you the 5.7 readout and then put that into a 4K image. So you're kind of like shooting it in the 5.7K to get a cleaner 4K image. strips down pretty small. All the stuff kind of comes off, and then the body is actually really light. You can get this thing into a Ronin M if you do like a small photo style lens. So that's pretty good to know that you don't need to get it onto the Movi. I do have a Movi, and when I need to like pull focus and like rig up like a lot of stuff, I'll put it in there. But for some smaller jobs and stuff, you can get it right in the little Ronin M, which is nice because it's a pretty affordable gimbal. And you know, if you're doing like single op, like a wide angle lens, you can just get on there and do your thing if you don't have to do like mission critical focus pulls. So you know, all the audio options and stuff, I won't go into like all that, but it's got pretty much all the stuff that you would expect from a camera kind of in this price point. So you got your XLR imports, or you know, inputs, so you can do the audio. You've got HDMI out, SDI out, you know, all those different flavors of things. 2 SD card slots, all like pretty standard stuff. It's got electronic image stabilization as well, which is really rad. You can toggle this on and off, so if you're doing handheld shooting. But one thing, I was a big Panasonic GH5 user, and one thing that kind of, when the GH5S came out, that kind of really made me switch over to the GH5S was that you know, some high-speed situations I was noticing that the sensor would be like moving around a little bit, or if I was like hanging out of a car with a gimbal, or you know, doing something totally crazy and maybe borderline dangerous, that I would get like a little bit of shake in some situations. So it's kind of nice that you can just turn it on and use it. The built-in ND filters is really cool for just being able to use photo lenses and then also use a polarizing filter. A lot of the work that I do is outside, so to not have to do a matte box, one, to bring a matte box or to carry filters, and then take advantage of like using a polarizing filter to just like, you know, pull some cloud detail in. I found this really liking using the polarized filters with the ProRes RAW, because now you're just getting so much detail that you can really like sit there and kind of hone in. So I use those a lot, and then I'm a big fan of like the Tiffin Black Pro Mist filter. I'll use that on some of the corporate stuff that I do. I use the Sigma 18-35 and the 50-100 cinema zoom lens on a lot of like the corporate stuff, just so we don't have to switch through the primes. And then those lenses are like super sharp, so I'll cut those down with the Pro Mist, and then I can just do a circular one right on the front, and then I've got ND if I need to, you know, get some ND in there to get my depth of field, or if I'm outside in bright sunlight. So yeah, so V-Log color profile, which will match the GH5 pretty well. But that gives you, on this, it's going to give you 14 stops as opposed to 12 on a Panasonic GH5 or GH5S. And then what's really cool is Panasonic has the VariCam LUT library. If you go on their website and poke around, or you know, punch into Google, you can find that library. So they have a whole like set of creative LUTs, and then just some basic LUTs that you can use with it. So I'll show you guys that workflow when we jump into Final Cut, how you can do like some of the edits or deliverables or jobs that I get hired for, just giving raw clips away. So sometimes I'll go in and I'll do 2 versions, one with the actual raw, and then there's a really fast workflow I have that in Final Cut you can set to just have all your clips like quickly look pretty darn good. And I'll do that as like a backup folder, just in case, like, I don't know if any of you guys ever give off footage and you're always like worried, you're like, hopefully the editor knows what they're doing, or you know, you give them log footage and then you know, you see the project and you're like, who the hell graded this? So so ATOMOS products, mainly with the EVA, I'm running the 7-inch monitor. They do 2 versions of this monitor. One's an HDMI only, which goes for about $1,000, or to get all the SDI options, that's going to go for, I think they go for 12, 13 maybe. Travis is over there texting. So what's the price on the Inferno at the moment? $12.95. Okay, so I was close. But yeah, so recorder and monitor in one. So in order to record to ProRes RAW, you need the recorder. It has like a little SSD, which just goes in the side. So you just pop this guy out. I've been using the G-Tech ones that come in this like little metal case, so you can drop them. Pretty durable, and they do like 1 terabyte and 2 terabyte ones. So you can get maybe about 2.5 hours out of the EVA on one of these drives. So you know, if you have 2 of them, you can get, you know, a good amount of footage. And then yeah, so just pop in like you're ready to go. Some of the features on it we'll jump into. So much more than a recorder, as I was just saying. A lot of really cool things that it does as well. So pretty much with this monitor, I bring my SDI version with me for almost everything. So A lot of the jobs that I do, like with guys in like New York and Boston, like when I'll go and I'll work as a camera op, it's anything from like Sony to Blackmagic to, you know, I'll use this on the Red as well. And then you can just plug it in, take the HDMI or the SDI signal, and then use all the focus tools, false color, all that stuff. So pretty rad that, you know, you can record on it, get the ProRes RAW, and then also have the ability to kind of use it and do some different stuff. So 1500 nit screen, so daylight viewable, you know, no need for a sun hood or like, you know, bringing in the negative fill and, you know, doing any of that. So waveforms, zebras, and vector scope. So you've got all the kind of focus tools I can show you on one of these. Let's just pop over here. And then you can do any of these focus and exposure tools after the fact, which is really cool. So if you're like run and gun work, you know, stuff's moving around, you can then go to a certain spot, you know, scrub through. Super easy to just scrub through to the exact spot. And then you can jump in, you know, pull the waveform up if you want to check the waveform. You can move them around in all different spots, you know, change the transparency, the brightness. Basically just look at all the information, put it anywhere you want on the screen, which is super helpful. So pop that guy off. Coming in, you know, you've got your focus peaking. You can do like focus punch in after the fact, which is really handy. So if you want to like be sure something's in focus, like if it's moving, so I use that one a ton. And then what you can also do too is even like on say a Red or a Blackmagic or something where you wouldn't be recording to, you know, you wouldn't be getting any benefit of using the ATOMOS to record to, you can still speed it. Or even on the EVA, if I'm recording to the card, you can also speed up here and then just have that for playback. So a lot of times when I use the Sumo for like focus pulling, even if I'm sending the signal wirelessly, what I'll do is I'll have the AC speed on it. That way I can quickly show the client on the Sumo monitor, just, you know, and we can check focus on the bigger monitor. And so even though you're not looking at the actual recorded image over the wireless signal, you can still kind of check all the stuff that you need to check. So definitely super rad. I've got one of these and then two of these that I use all the time. So they've been pretty good to me. So focus tools, I kind of just covered all that stuff, but you know, you've got the focus peaking, you can change the color to any color you want. You've got the zebras, you've got false color. So those are the kind of ones that I use the most. And then if you want to get super like looking at color, you can go in and they've got vector scope and, you know, all the stuff that you'd expect. So not so much of a big deal on something like the EVA, but on the GH5, what's really cool is it's got a little breakout cable, which comes in an accessory pack. So it's got a little LEMO cable that comes in here and then full-size XLR. So it's a good way to get XLR into a DSLR camera, or if you have a bunch of different audio that you're trying to bring in, or something that you're doing, like some type of shoot where maybe you want to get some additional stuff, you can do two into the camera, it'll pull those into the recorder, and then you can plug additional ones in here. So you can get a whole bunch of different tracks. Hit a little button here, it'll pop up all of the controls, and then you can, oh, here's like a big version of it. So you can just hit the button of the one you want to listen to and, you know, go through and, you know, do all that. You can do frame delay as well, which I found is super helpful on the GH5. The magic number I found is 2 frames. Seems to be off by, so I don't know if anyone else has also found that. Yeah.
So GH5, if you're recording to external monitor, you can use that to record audio, and it'll also record the audio from the camera?
It'll always record the audio from the camera coming through the HDMI on the GH5 and on the EVA. So you can have like a shotgun mic on the GH5, or in this case, it's got 2 XLRs, so you can put 2 XLRs into this. And then say you're at like an event. I just did something where I was filming, the son of the band Cream has this new music brand, and they make these microphone clip stand things, and we were doing a little product video for them. So we had a sound guy that came in, but you know, with music, you just want to, we basically were taking every possible sound input we could, you know, just to be safe. So I plugged 2 things in here, and then I plugged another one in, and they gave me like a master that I burnt in. So I just had everything. So, you know, yeah, so it's pretty cool. I use that on the GH5, and that's a good solution because I'll do a splitter on the GH5, and then I'll bring that cable and then like a Y cable, just like the little one with the stereo jack, and then I'll do 2 Rode microphones. Plug that in. You can
use the XLR adapter. You just run
Exactly. So if you have just like a set of like 2 little Rode lavs and the client, like you're there for like a 1-person interview, and then I don't know if you guys have ever had this, like you light for a 1-person interview, and then they're like, all right, we're bringing in an extra person, and it's now a 2-person interview, and you're like, you know, you just can use that cable the cable's definitely saved me a few times. So good to have in there. What's pretty cool is I kind of talked about how you can punch in and check focus. You can scrub through. There's also a way that you can view the slow motion clips just by doing a little bit of math. So if you're filming at 60 frames a second, want to know what it looks like in a 24p timeline, you can scrub this to 40%, and then it's going to play back your clip as it will look. So that's pretty cool that you can just check that out. So that's definitely super handy for the slow motion stuff, punching in, checking focus, all that stuff. I'll talk about log, LUTs, and kind of previewing looks when we get into monitoring the ProRes RAW, because there's some unique things about that. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. But one thing that I really love is the ability to tag clips. So you've got this little flag right here. You can flag favorites, rejects, bad audio. I'm mainly using the favorites and rejects, but with Final Cut, you can also export this data and then be able to take that data back to the editing suite, and it will mark your clips with a bright green bar or a bright red bar. But a lot of, what's that? So the real move is, how many of you guys have clients who you're still like packing up the lights and they're like, when's the edit ready? Which is like pretty much all of my clients. So what I'll do is I'll take my monitor, and then I'll just take that and a couple of batteries, and I'll put that like on my travel jobs. I'll just stick that in my carry-on, and then I can sit there on the plane and just plug in a couple little Sony batteries. And when you're going with playback, you can get a lot of life out of 2 batteries. So what I'll do is I'll sit there and on the plane, I'll start scrubbing through all my clips. I'll mark my ins and my outs, and I'll mark my favorites. So you can go, so you can go like, just zoom out here, or I'll make the PA drive. That's another one. I'll sit shotgun and I'll make the PA drive home, and and you can sit here. You can put an in mark. So you go over here. You can mark this as a favorite, and then you can go to an in. It'll put your in right there. Put your out. You can move these around, change the out. So you can do that, but I mainly will just go through with favorites and rejects, and then on a lot of bigger corporate shoots when the client is there, and then I have the sumo. What I will do is I will have them be looking at the monitor, and then if they're like, oh, we really like that one, or sometimes there's like a logo that maybe looks funny to them. If there's one clip that you know that they're definitely not going to want, you can mark reject, and then that way you don't, maybe go home and the clip looks good to you from like a cinematography standpoint, but then you get back and you put it in the edit, and they're like, oh, we told you not to use that one, but you got stuff coming from every direction, and I don't know. So I find it.
I knew you could mark favorites, but I didn't know that actually you could mark in and out.
So yep.
Get the extra on the Final Cut and have it be done for you.
Yes, even just using favorites and rejects. That's normally the way that I do it, but I'm always just like going through my takes and like looking at them, with the client, and then making sure that what I like from a cinematography standpoint looks good to the client from the product being in the video kind of standpoint. So you're always kind of like fighting that battle where there's like one little thing that they don't like, but yet the shot is like perfect and your camera movement's perfect. So like I said, I will do that on set, and you can record to this even if you're not using an EVA, although you should be using an EVA. But if you're using a different camera, you can do this with you can just record to the SSD, because it's just recording whatever's coming in. So it's a super helpful tool to just use for for anything.
From camera to camera, and you don't have to reformat?
I even will, when I'm doing drone stuff, I'll plug this into like the DJI Inspire 2, and I'll plug this into the HDMI out, and then I can look at my clips on this monitor, and then have, for focus, I'll record to it, and then I can, like when I'm flying like the longer lenses, be able to check focus. So ProRes RAW, which is the new codec that ATOMOS and Apple partnered on. Their whole big thing is the performance of ProRes, flexibility of RAW. A couple different cameras that will allow you to record it, but the big thing with the EVA, and one thing that really is kind of the standout feature for me, is this is the only camera that you're going to be able to get a 5.7K image out of. Everything else is limited to just 4K. So the EVA, you can get the 5.7K at 24 or 30 frames a second. So pretty rad, because you get that in the ProRes RAW, where none of the other cameras will will do that. So they also are working on an update too, which will do like all of your camera data. So you can kind of get like what focal length and some other information. Do you know anything, any inside rumors on?
Time frame is the major thing, but it's full metadata spec for lens data.
Cool.
LDS across a bunch of different.
And that'll give you ISO and all that stuff too?
That is the idea.
Yeah, so kind of similar to like a Red or some of the other cameras where you get all that information. You can now get all of that stuff when you do this system for significantly cheaper and with tons of features like the the slow motion and just all that's packed into the EVA. So pretty rad. But like I said, the biggest thing right now I think is the 5.7K. The only way to get the image out of the EVA to be the true 5.7K and not in a 4K wrapper is to do it to ProRes RAW. So the drives, you can just pull one drive out like really fast. You can just you don't have to power anything down. You can take the drive out. So if you're recording on that or you're on the gimbal or something like that, you just stick the other drive in, put it in the right direction, and then...
Do those also fit into the EV base?
Yep, so these fit into ATOMOS. When you buy the recorder, it gives you a little basic reader, but you can do the EV bays, so if you have a big tower, and then they make a standalone reader which does USB-C as well, so you get a little bit faster speed because you don't have to use a dongle or be wondering where the heck your dongle is. Yeah, so there's no reformatting. Like I said, you can just pull this out and then I don't even know what's on any of these drives. I just kind of grabbed them. So here's some stuff from that band promo that I was, hold on. So yeah, like I said, you can be just pulling the drives out and then pop them into somewhere different. But what's cool about that is if you are shooting on the gimbal and then maybe you have a situation where you don't want to run wireless or just any situation where maybe you don't have time to set up the wireless system or run a long HDMI cord, or if you're like running and gunning in a two-person team and you want to review, you can just pull the drive out of one, or if you want to like show the client something that you shot, you just pull the drive out, stick it in, go through your playback options, and it's ready to go. So you don't need to sit here and like, fumble. You just pull it out, and nothing's going to break, overwrite itself, or anything catastrophic is going to happen. And then they're in these like pretty sweet metal cases, so you could theoretically throw it across the room. I don't know if I'll try it, but it feels pretty solid, so that it's not like a an SD card or something. So I definitely sleep a little bit better, with that workflow. Anybody here using Final Cut full time? Okay, I know. So a couple rumors coming down the pike that we are going to see it in some of the other programs, but right now with it being so new and Apple having such a heavy foot and heavy stake in it, right now it's married only to Final Cut. But there is a really easy solution to just take the raw clips and then shoot them out into a ProRes 422 HQ, which you can then bring over to either DaVinci or Adobe, or waiting it out a little bit. Hopefully there will be another solution. So, so yeah. The file size, you've got this little chart here that kind of shows it. I haven't noticed a huge difference really between shooting GH5 footage in ProRes HQ versus ProRes RAW. I pretty much always shoot the RAW HQ, with the exception I did one interview for Porsche North America where it was like a 3-hour interview. And so I definitely got a lot more space with that, but it was really dialed in lighting setup. We're interviewing some guys and I just knew they were going to be talking forever. So,
Did you say GH5 footage in RAW?
No, I'm saying like a lot of people were using this system with the GH5 to shoot ProRes 422 HQ. Yep. So I shot a ton on the GH5s before I was shooting on the EVA. So what I was saying is I haven't noticed a ton of difference in file size between shooting on the GH5 to ProRes HQ versus shooting ProRes RAW. It's slightly bigger, but not like, oh my gosh, I got to go buy 1 million hard drives. It's pretty nominal. And depending on how you're using it, they've got this little mid-max range thing that I really don't know what that calculates, but yeah.
When you refer to GH5, you refer to the 400 megabits per second? Or?
Well, 400 megabits normally is about the same size as the ProRes 422, but the 422 HQ, which you can get to get the 10-bit out of the GH5. I was big on recording that and still use my GH5S as a B cam to the EVA. So I guess I was just making the just kind of statement that there's not like a huge difference, like, oh my gosh, if I start shooting this raw, I'm gonna have to buy all new drives. So if you're using, you know, if even on like the Sony A7S, I know a lot of people use that camera to, you know, to shoot and get the, there was some, when you shot to the ATOMOS product, you would get like an added benefit. I think you got the 10-bit that way, or maybe the original one, you could only record 4K by going to an external monitor, and then it would give you 422. But long story short, you're not going to be like, oh my gosh, I need to go buy a bunch of towers and stuff like that. So, you know, a lot of benefit for like a tiny little fraction of extra hard drive space was kind of the point I was making with that. So, couple clips, a super overexposed clip here for you guys. Let's see if this plays here. So as you can see, sky is like totally, completely gone on this one, super white, and then a little pull down for you. So when I first got it, I tried to just shoot a bunch of clips just to like really kind of push and pull and, you know, see what I can do. I'm gonna actually grab some of these clips and we're gonna jump into Final Cut. So here's one that's like obviously super completely blown out, and then you know, blown out sky, I was able to really pull it down. But one thing that's really cool is you can also really retain a lot of the details in the shadows as well in outdoor environments. So I feel like a lot of times, you know, with the raw that I was shooting, I'd be really focused on like looking at the sky detail and all this stuff, but there's really a lot of shadow detail that you can also retain in there without getting, you know, a crazy amount of noise as well. So couple tips on the EVA and just ProRes RAW in general. You always want to be a little bit overexposed. It's going to tend to like the image, and I think you get a little bit better results by overexposing and then pulling down. The bulk of your image you still want to shoot for using like 15 to 80%, and then you know, everyone is really quick to look at the highlights, but just make sure when you're using ATOMOS HDR, which I'll show you guys in a little bit, that you get that slider, or excuse me, the waveform, there's like a white line that's going to be across the bottom of the screen, and you really just want to make sure that's above 0. It's pretty easy to just look at the highlights and look at like the extra detail, because we're so used to, you know, compromising a little bit in the sky, at least like when you're outdoor shoots. So definitely keep an eye on that. So Final Cut Pro now does the color wheels. So like I said, you can do a lot with the color wheels. I use the plug-in Color Finale as well, which will give you vector-based adjustments, so you can go in and adjust different colors. So I'll jump back to this clip here so you guys can see kind of how quickly and easy it is. Apple 6 is going to open up your color pucks, and just reset these here. So you can just go ahead and, like I said, just tons of information just by pulling it down. We'll come back. You can then start moving around, you know, shadows, midtones, all that stuff, but super easy to recover.
So where did it start? Where were you?
So I will just bring that back to right there. Like I said, totally blown out. And then this is literally just, you know, not doing anything super fancy. I'll show you here on the color wheels. So this is just grabbing the master right here, pulling that down. I'll pull my shadows down so they're coming down to about 0. Pulling midtones up, kind of balancing image out. You can play with highlights, you know, start moving this around. And so that's just while I'm standing here talking to you guys.
Still leave some of the highlights above 100?
No, I would bring them down a little bit, but
You're still quite a bit over, but it doesn't matter. Like,
yeah. So it's just kind of getting the overall image. You can have a little bit going over, but I'll show you.
for web and internet, I guess, not for.
Yep, so you can, there is a filter that Final Cut will allow you to put on, which will kind of take care of that. But what you can also do is just, you know, I mean, you can use this and fully, you know, sit here and, you know, finagle your image so you get it exactly where you want. But that was just showing you a super, super blown out shot, and just how quick with just grabbing a few pucks as I'm trying to figure out my presentation and talk to you guys, you know. So there is a way on the ATOMOS recorder which will allow you to monitor and then show you that maximum point, which is called Atom HDR. So I'll show you guys how you can monitor that because I have a really cool slider which you can move around and look at the clips, which will allow you to see what the image looks like, so you can monitor the signal in a couple different ways. So right now this is set here, this one clip. there's a couple different ways when the clips come in. So we'll jump to a new clip actually just to show you here. I'm just going to turn some.
When you just dropped that, was the LUT was already applied, right?
Yeah, so I'm going to show you one here. So you can see right here we have raw to log conversion and the camera LUT. So you can go in, you have the Panasonic V-Log LUT. If you want to just look at what it would look like in, if you want to go back to the original point, you can do it that way, or you can do this workflow with Final Cut so this one, it's already done. So I'll click on this one, and you can see it's got the V-Log, and then you can go down, drop camera LUT. So I have a LUT already on this in a different layer, but what you can do is go through. Here we go. So here's a clip that has nothing done to it except for the Panasonic V-Log raw to log conversion, and then the Panasonic V-Log camera LUT. So this is just out of the camera. This was a shot that was correctly exposed, and then as you import it, it will automatically put the V-Log conversion and the V-Log LUT on it. So you can bring it into Final Cut, get this look, and then do a 422 HQ output, and then have that to bring to Resolve or to Premiere. So that's kind of the way, or if you're handing the footage off and you want to just make sure that someone who might not know what they're doing, you can do it this way, and it's a pretty fast way to kind of cruise through it. So 1500 nit, so the small HD I believe is 1000 nit, so it's slightly brighter than that. There are, I'm not sure who kind of leads the way with the brightest one, but this is definitely plenty viewable. It's got a brightness slider, and then it's 1500 nit, and so you can kind of compare that against some other stuff. But no problems outdoors. What you can also do is, depending on the shoot, I'll flip this around. This viewfinder, you can move and mirror it and flip it and do whatever you need to. So actually, this is kind of set up to show you guys. I normally like to put my ATOMOS monitor on this side, then I'll put this over here angled up, and then you can flip it out and up. But what you can also then do is you can just have this set touchscreen, and then you've got this, you've got your 180 degree, you've got your V-Log, your 23.98 frames per second, you've got your white balance, and then you can just touch any of these. So if you wanted to make an adjustment, you can do it that way. So I'll normally have that on this side of the camera. So I'll pull the camera in, I'll make my settings, have that here, flip that in, so it's like nice and compact, and I can hold the camera right here like for handheld work. What's also really cool is this is really easy to get in and out. You just grab this, and there's no like twisting or anything. You just kind of pull it out like an HDMI cord. So sometimes on the gimbal when I'm trying to, and I normally will do it on like my Movi when we set up like the full follow focus and then the wireless, and you just start loading all this stuff on, it starts getting super heavy. I'm not a huge fan of using the Ready Rig because I don't do a ton of like really long shots, so I kind of start like counting grams, and what I'll do is I'll just have this on deck, plug it into the camera, you can pause the motors, plug it in, make your setting changes real quick, unplug it, and be ready to go. So the touchscreen is like super fast to use on here, which is pretty nice. You don't have to fumble around, but then you do have a couple of programmable buttons, so just kind of depends, but definitely kind of a cool thing is that you can just plug this in and unplug it. So especially with the Zacuto stuff, there's like a quick release here. You can take this off if you're not going to need it, if you're only shooting outside, it's the middle of the day, you're not going to change your white balance. So the camera is really modular in that fashion that you can kind of set it up for kind of whatever you're doing really quick. This is all Zacuto stuff, and then this is the original handle that comes with the Panasonic. Zacuto also makes like a low profile one, which comes with their GH5 cage, and then it's got like the little circle for the 15 millimeter. So what I'll do is I'll have this monitor on the other side on a little super short 15 millimeter rod, and then a magic arm. This is like their longer one, but I do their short one, and I put that on this side. And then you've got this monitor on the magic arm, and then the LCD on the other side, and then you can just touch, through like the main things that you'd want to change, like frame rates and white balance is all just right there. So, and then also audio too. You can see the audio and pop into those menus like really quick. So I find that kind of a good way to, to do that. And then, like I said, when I'm on the gimbal, you just unplug it and you can just, toss that thing to the side and then slide the entire top handle off, put the ATOMOS up on top of the gimbal, and then I'll do like a quick plate, and then I can go from like the shoulder rig into the gimbal. And you know, my ACs I think tend to hate me because I like to use like film tools. I'll never be like only on the motion slider, and the gimbal I jump back and forth. And the EVA definitely like pops back and forth to these different things. These next two clips are that workflow that I just showed you guys, which was just using the LUTs. So here's a couple slow motion clips for you guys. So you guys can see a ton of detail, not a lot of, I feel like on some of the other cameras you'll get a lot of like shadow noise or like compression artifacts. So we can look at these on this guy a little bit later when it's not going through so many different things. But let's see if we can go full screen here.
Is this the 180?
So this is 240 frames. So pretty good 240 out of this camera, which I've been pretty pumped on.
It'll do the 240 and 4K ProRes RAW?
It will do 2K in 240, so you're getting 2K, not 4K. You get 4K 60. You get 4K 60 as your max frame rate in 4K, but like I said, you get 240 at 2K. So before like doing action sports work, they're kind of always asking for those high frame rates. And then I felt like I did rent RED cameras a lot for those because I would see a lot of artifacts in there. And then this, when you look at it, not in Final Cut, and if you look at it on one of these or on like a good monitor that's not, this laptop is only 1080, so it's sending a 1080 signal out, not a 2K signal. So yeah, when you really start looking at it, you can see a difference in like compression artifacts and stuff like that. You know, sometimes in the sky you get those little like pixelated. Yeah, you get the like, it almost looks like noise, but it'll be at something that's at like 200 ISO. So I've been pretty impressed with how that looks.
Indie Shooter, brought to you by Akidio, Band Pro Film and Digital, Blackmagic Design, and Carl Zeiss.